Hey everyone, welcome back. Well, as you will have seen from the title, we're starting on the Indian today. So obviously first stage in any restoration is to take it all to bits and assess what we've got. So we're going to do that today, but first of all I'm going to grab the camera and we're just going to look at a couple of things that are very Royal Enfield. So we'll go over that and then we're going to start taking it to bits. I've been soaking it with stuff here called PB Blaster. I've got some somewhere. Because this hasn't been taken apart for a long time. So I've got a feeling we're going to be wrestling with a few nuts and bolts. Who knows, maybe some hacksaw and cold chisel before we're finished. But anyway, as I say, let me grab the camera and I'll show you a few things that are very Enfield centric, shall we say. I really like these bikes. So let's get started. So let's start the front end. I mentioned the front brake on this before. It's actually a twin-sided hub. There's a 6-inch brake, one on this side and one on that side. And the two cables come up to the handlebars to what is known as a whiffle tree, which is a sort of, it's actually a horse riding term, horse tack. What it is it's pivoted in the center here, and each cable goes to the handlebar nipple, so that when you pull, if there's any difference in the two cables, that swivels a little bit to take it into account. So that's the first thing. Second thing is the Enfield forks. Aluminium sliders, as you can see. They're a pretty basic fork, not brilliant, which is probably why for the final model, the Interceptor Mark II, they put Norton road holder front forks and the Norton front wheel in. But one interesting thing about the Enfield forks is this wheel spindle mounting. You'll see it's slightly forward of the line of the forks, and you can get another set of sliders if you're going to use a sidecar outfit, and the wheel spindle is even further forward. This lug part comes right out here. First Enfield twin I had, Constellation, was set up like that. It had the full airflow fairing and a Busma double adult sidecar on it. And the first left hand corner I came to, I made a classic sidecar mistake and ended up through a woman's hedge. Okay, we won't dwell on that. Favourite story of my wife. So, alright, the next thing to notice here is this rather weird headlamp attachment. Now, I had an Interceptor here, which was a model I hadn't seen before. It was a TT7, and at first I thought it had a lot of non-standard stuff on, but it was just done for the States. Now, most of the Enfields, you see, have what's known as the Enfield Casket, and that was the sort of top yoke and the headlamp and everything all in one cast aluminium piece. It had two little side lights in, sort of on either side of the headlight. Oh, I don't like my hand there. But this one, for this bike, they put, like they had in the competition machines and what have you, just a reduced casket, more like a standard type of top yoke. You may remember from the other video, it has an enormous clock in it. The next thing that's of interest is this frame. Now, if you look at the Enfields that come from India now, you'll notice the frame is different, because they're based on the pattern of frame that was before this one. And what happens is there's a different mounting here. The frame comes back like this with a little triangular sort of toolbox and stuff in, and different mountings. But this frame works really well. And actually they use this frame layout for more or less everything. So if you have a 250 Crusader, Continental GT, something like that, you have a Bullet, or you have one of the twins, apart from the dimensions, you get this open bottom frame. And that's made them quite popular for some specials. You'll see them in trials and you would see them on the road. Certainly when I was a lad in the 60s, tri-fields with either a 350 or a 500 Enfield Triumph engine in the 250 frame were quite popular. These frames handle really well. As I say, I had two Constellations and they were both very nice. Okay, slightly strange swinging arm. You see this huge plate here. Oh, I can't really think of anything else that's particularly Enfieldy. Let's walk around while I think about it. The toolboxes, this one is snapped off here. That should have a little piece on it. Just a quick release thing. I've fortunately got two brand new ones of those, and also, as I mentioned before, a reproduction side cover for the other side from Hitchcock's. Alright, so that's the bike. Now then, what we're going to do is we're going to strip it down, and also we're going to look in here. I'm going to set the camera up for better for this, but this is a box of bits that came with it. So before we start, let's see what we've got in here. Here we go, just like Christmas. Okay. That actually is part of the clutch mechanism. Some of the Enfields, I guess the later ones, really straining my memory here, had an ordinary push rod through the centre of the clutch, and the earlier ones had this thing here. The cable pulled it, and as it twisted, you see these 4 holes here, how they sort of countersunk? They have 4 balls in them, and when you twist it, the balls are in, the plate it's on is also countersunk. They're forced out of the holes, so they force the plates apart. As I say, Enfield were always doing interesting things. There are valve covers, old twist grip, all sorts of bits and pieces in here. Spacing pieces off the frame for the engine mountings, so we'll have to go through them. Speaking of engine mountings, look at that. Let's say when I bought this bike, somebody was going to make a chopper out of it. It's actually 2 bikes. I'll tell you that story in a minute. So, God knows what they were planning to do there. Probably they were going to have footrests mounted on the front engine mounting plates, which is something they do here. They love to make the bikes dangerous. But fortunately I have some front engine mounting plates, extra ones. This goes underneath. It's a bottom engine mounting plate. Obviously, being a bottom engine mounting plate, it bolts to the bottom of the engine. It also has the centre stand on it there. Clutch basket and plates. There's the clutch, the pressure plate, which you will see in more detail when I do the engine. Another engine mounting plate. Oh, we've got our concentric, and unlike the Triumphs and the BSA twins, where you had different heads for the singles and the twin, the single and the twin carb. Do you know? I think I must be getting old. I can't remember things. You wouldn't think you'd look at me, would you? But I am. I'm getting quite old. Anyway, all you needed to change from single carb to twin carb was the appropriate manifold, and this one is for the Super Meteor, which was the 700 single carb. The Constellation was the 700 with twin carbs. There you go, look at that. I tell you, some of the stuff on the American bikes just, that's, of course, is a prop stand. Weird, weird, weird. Oh, there's an alternator for you, look at that. 1950s alternator. I've got a feeling we'll be changing that for a later encapsulated one. Ignition coil, footrest, bent bolt, that goes right through that. I don't know if you can see, it's got a hex on it, that goes right through that, through the engine. Oh dear, look at the state of that. That, by the way, passed as an air filter. A ram tube, look. Even still stamped up for a 900 concentric. So that actually shouldn't be on there because they had an air box on the single carb ones. Steering damper. Something else for the chopperization. Various nuts and bolts. There's a gearbox sprocket. What have we got here? Another alternator. So, few things of interest, but not a lot. Now, this box of stuff came with the engine and a frame and forks and various bits and pieces. As I said, it was going to be a chopper. But there was an awful lot missing, so I just put it to one side. Then I had a chap call in the workshop one day, and while I was looking around, he saw all this stuff, and he says to me, "I got one of them in the barn." And it turned out he'd had it for sort of 25 years. It was some school project he was going to do. And he had basically the entire bike, the one you see on the lift, less the engine. So I bought that off him. I already had the engine and all these other bits. So one complete bike for a very reasonable price. So having seen all that, let's put that back in there. Let's get started taking this to pieces. Now as we go through this, I'm going to talk to you as if you haven't done this before. So those of you who have, bear with me. So as well as actually doing this, I'm going to talk about some restoration things in general. Some things which you might think are pretty obvious, but it's always the obvious things that catch you out. So first of all, you'll notice I've got this chopped up now so that I can get at the front wheel. And although it may look a little iffy, I have got it fastened both sides with 2 tie downs, so that these now are almost superfluous. Please, when you're working on something, don't rest it on a brick. Don't rely on it leaning against something. Before you start doing anything, make sure it's not going to fall over, right? You know what I mean? Got some movement in it, but it isn't going to fall over. It's not going to collapse on you. Right, the next thing is, excuse me, take notes. Now I know you're going to say it's 2017, take photographs. Well, photographs are alright, but photographs don't give you notes. So if you take a photograph of this, you might say, okay, that's how everything goes together. But then as you take it apart, you're going to find that, okay, I need to take this bolt out first. I need to take this particular mudguard stay out first. You can make a little note of that. And also, with drawings, you know, they don't have to be brilliantly artistic, but you can get in there and you can draw specific items. So instead of just taking a photograph of something clustered, you can say, oh, look at that. That one piece is just like that. You know, in workshop manuals, I always find that even more use than workshop manuals generally is a parts book, because an exploded diagram shows you everything and it shows you where it goes. So that's what you want to do with your drawings. So you can make notes of little things like the cables go on the inside here, although it's pretty obvious because that's there. But anyway, notebook. Right, so as I say, I've been spraying these up. Let's see if they will actually come apart. There we go. Now when you're taking things like these off, you'll see when we get further on, if when you undo the bolts on something like a mudguard stay, it goes boing over here, don't just take it apart, put it to one side and then get it painted, because there's nothing worse when you have everything painted than coming back and go to put something on and find, oh shoot, look at this, now I've got to put it in the vise to bend it, or these holes don't line up anymore, I've maybe got to slightly open one out. You can dry fit the whole thing if you want, but just as you're taking things apart, if you see they don't fit right, then work on them till they fit right and then put them to one side. It saves a lot of tears in the long run, a lot of stomping around, cursing, high blood pressure and so on. Boing. Now these cables have had it, obviously. So again, when you're doing stuff, don't spend half an hour fighting a cable like that off to get it out of here and all the rest of it. You're going to ditch the cable, just cut the cable, take it off. And then you can work on things like getting the nipple out of here on the bench. I don't know if these will cut this or if we'll need to get the proper clippers, but oh, there we go. Don't know my own strength. Ooh. There you go, why does one just come off and one doesn't? See, now we don't have to worry about that. Now I think what we'll do here is take the wheel out first. Let me just have a look at something here. Oh yes, you can see everything. We're going to take the wheel out first, I think, rather than try and finagle the mudguard over the top. Because as often happens, the mudguards have got indentations, so they don't just slide out of the forks. So first of all, I'm going to have to take this out of the way. There we go. So here we've just got to undo these four, and now the wheel is going to come out because the brake torque is by bosses on each fork leg. So I'm going to stop the camera, otherwise this is going to be a 4-hour video. So let me stop it now and come back. Now the wheel and the front mudguard is out. We could start on this top bit. I've squirted everything up with the releasing stuff again and got myself some boxes to put things in. So we'll take this off. Now this is going to be one of those cases where I'm going to have to check the Hitchcock's catalogue, but I don't know if we'll be able to get new lever blades and things like this. As I said, they may have them, but I did a Gold Star and they were slightly unusual blades and lever perches and everything, and they were just unavailable, so I ended up having to get them chromed, and I can't remember the exact figure, but I think it was something like $200 just to get a pair of handlebar levers and perches done. So if possible, it's generally better to buy new. Alright, let's see what we can get off here. Screwdriver. Okay, that's that out of the way. Ooh. Well, some of it's being a little more helpful than others. Again, don't fight cables. If that hadn't have come off there easily, I would have just cut it. Little things like that I tend to keep, the little split ferrules. They can come in handy. Alright, and there you see is our whiffle tree. Put it in there for now. Now then, this little bugger didn't want to come off. And it still doesn't want to. So we'll give that another squirt. Squirt, squirt. There it is. PB Blaster, really good stuff. There we go. Right. You see everything's still in. Yeah, it's a bit dark there, isn't it? Never mind. Let's get this headlight off. Oh, I'll tell you what, will that come off? Bit rusty at that end, but. Put it down there for now and we'll get ourselves a little bit better organised in a minute. Brilliant bit of place in that, isn't it? I know I did an Enfield bullet for a chap, and when I redid it I thought, yeah, I remember that. Why they couldn't have put it up here somewhere, who knows. Anyway, let's find the appropriate spanner for that. That's too big. That's too big, Michael. Intermediary size. There it is. Now here I'm going to be putting all this headlamp stuff in with the handlebar levers. Just depends on how I like to do it. Some people like to keep all the electrical stuff together and so on. I like to keep sort of the bits together that came off together. So you know, like all the stuff from doing the wheel I kept together. And now all the stuff that's coming off with the handlebars and the headlamp I'll keep together. Alright, that's alright. We're going to have wires here. Now then, let's slap this off. Swivel this down. This entire piece here comes off as one. Or at least it should come off as one. Ooh, look at that. Just thinking about these little screws, let me show you something. Invariably when you have something like those fork caps were, with studs with nuts on, you'll find there'll always be one where the nut doesn't want to come off. It always screws the stud out. Sod's law. Because the other bit of sod's law is, not this time, that usually when you have several screws, the last one doesn't want to come out. You go at them, the first one comes out and you think, oh, that was good. And then the next one, you're thinking, oh, great, great. And then all of a sudden you get to the last one. So as I say, that all comes off in one piece. And you can buy them, funny enough. I've never bought one, so when I say you can buy them, it might be the infamous pattern part, which, as I've mentioned before, I have no idea what they use as a pattern on a lot of these. But they often tend up to be nothing like the original part. Now, Royal Enfield use British Standard Cycle on everything, including the bits you drop on the floor and lose. So let's see what we can do next. How's this clock in here? Oh, it's just in a rubber. Ooh, there, there. Now, we didn't want that to come apart. I didn't want this to screw out. I just want the knurled piece and the cable to screw out. So, come on people, tell me where I've put this releasing fluid. There it is. We'll put a bit of that on. Then, we'll get something to hold. Yeah. There we go. We'll try again. And there. Good. It's a good fit. Ah, there must be something in the way here. That's another vital lesson. If something doesn't want to come off, have a little look. Ah, there's a novelty. One here as well. Yes. You'll like this. Maybe some of you Enfield buffs will know it, but these are always a bugger to get in and out. The trip meter thing. See, there's two little springs that catch on under there, and a little wasp's nest. And as I said, there's an Indian component. This clock, it says Indian. As I said, when I was first looking for bits, there's various little pieces inside there. I actually found that I can get a decal with these numbers on to go on there. 8,173. Of course, that means nothing because I don't actually have the engine that was in this bike. But let's see what we're doing now. Feel of them, so some more soaking. Right, time to turn you off again. I'll fiddle on and come back to an important part about the forks. Alright, take two. I've taken one fork out and then I realised the battery had gone flat on the camera and you'd missed an important piece of information. Right, you remember I told you that I used to have a Constellation with a sidecar outfit, which I smacked into a garden wall and went through the hedge, and of course I bent the forks. So I was young and inexperienced then, so I bought a pair of forks for it and came back and I thought, okay, easy forks. Take the pinch bolt out the bottom and then just take the plug out of the top, the big bolt out the top. So I did that. And then I pulled on the forks and they didn't want to come out. So I pulled at them a little bit and I put a little wedge in here to open that bottom clamp up. Still wouldn't come out. So I got a rubber hammer and pounded on one of the lugs. Still wouldn't come out. So I got a bigger hammer and pounded until eventually I actually snapped the alloy lug off the frame. So then I got a big pair of Stilsons, or pipe wrenches it is here in the US, because the Constellation had rubber gaiters on the bottom. And I started working it backwards and forwards and eventually it began to move. And then I found I could just, a bit at a time, get it out. So finally the fork came out. And when I pulled it out, I discovered this. The top of the stanchion is threaded. It actually screws into here. So don't get all bent out of shape and lose your temper. What you need is you take the top plug out, you get yourself a 1/2 inch Allen key, and then, remembering which way it goes because we're upside down, I think that's going to screw out like that. You'll find that they'll actually screw out. It's amazing how the Allen keys don't want to find the hole. There we go. Now these of course haven't been out for a long time. I've actually, it's a day, nearly 2 days since I did the other filming, and I've had these soaking. I poured releasing fluid in there, I just had them soaking and they still were pretty tight. So anyway, bear that in mind. So let me switch you off again. I'll take these out and the bits and pieces off. This obviously just comes off with the big nut here. Don't forget when you do that all the little balls are going to fall out, but I'd advise you to replace them anyway. There's one little nut at the bottom here where the steering damper part bolts to the frame, so don't forget to take that out, or again you'll be pulling and riving and it won't want to come out. So let me finish taking this apart and then we'll move to the back end. Forks and everything's out, so let's get started on this back end. First of all, a couple of little things. There's a rectifier for you. I don't know if you can see this, but this cable strap is actually a little leather belt with a buckle. Isn't that sweet? So, as I say, I've got two brand new ones of these. Oh, looks like we've had visitors. As I say, this lived in a barn for 25 years and it's been in my shed for a while. So let's dispose of that. Now some of people like to be making a list of parts as they go along. What I tend to do is wait till I've got everything, get it laid out and say, okay, I need another one of those and another one of those. So some of this stuff we'll have to look at later. Right, let's get the saddle off. Oh! Now for those of you who watched the B44 videos, remember I mentioned there with saddles that rather than buying aftermarket ones, if possible, if the base is solid, the metal base, I like to just get them reupholstered. Either covers that you can get from people like Leighton's in the UK, or even take it to an upholsterer and get him to make you one. The Interceptor I did actually, I bought a saddle from the UK for that from, what's its names, Hitchcock's, and it was the saddle they had listed for the Interceptor, and it went, to be honest, it went nowhere near. It was completely the wrong shape. It was like a Crusader one, and I had to do a lot to that to get it to fit. So I'm hoping that, since a lot of the other metal on this is really sound, you know, it's been in a nice dry barn for a long time, so it hasn't at least been stood out in the weather. I'm hoping that the seat base will be good and solid and I can just get a new seat cover and foam. At least these bolts coming up, they have been soaked now for several days. I keep coming back to them and squirting them all with the PB blaster. I don't know, can you get that in the UK? It's a lot better than WD-40, I'll tell you, or any of the other ones that I've used. Slips under that, so this should come off these two bolts at the back, and then like the BSA saddles, just go there. Except this one is also, somebody's put a bracket onto the mudguard as well. Touch of sciatica this morning. Ooh, let's see. Yes, it is. Oh, isn't that strange? I don't remember them being fastened to the mudguard there. Ooh. This is one of those nuts that you can't see a thing. Probably easy to get at, well it would be, with the wheel out. So shall we leave that, take everything else out, get the back wheel out. Right, let's see what else will come off. Ooh. That will screw off there. I want it off there. Let's take this brake rod off. If you're going to take brake rods off, it's very handy to have one of these. Again, it's just homemade. It's a little piece of tube with 2 slots in. Let me see if you can see the brake rod. No, you can't. It's a bit hit and miss this morning, isn't it? Just talk amongst yourselves here. Alright. Let's say it's just a piece of tube with a T handle on it and a couple of slots. It goes on there and that fits in there, and then you can just do this. Now this one's coming off easily because again it's been soaked, but when they're really stiff, believe me, this little tool here is very handy indeed. Last little bit. Ooh. Rusty threads at the end. Alright, now what I'm going to do now is get this up on some sort of stand so I can take the back wheel out. So we'll once again turn you off. There's nothing exciting happens, you know, when I turn you off. You're not really missing anything. So let's take a break while I get myself organised.